All right, what's going on, guys? We're going to go ahead and get into this dynamic warm-up. Remember, this warm-up is for basketball, football, volleyball, baseball, soccer, any sports that you think of. So we're going to go ahead and dive into it. Let's rock and roll. All right, so for the dynamic warm-up today, we've got 10, 15, 20 yards if you have it. First exercise we're going to do is a light jog, down and back. Down and back is 1, down and back is 2, down and back is 3. You can do 2 to 3, you can do 4 to 5, do however many you want to. It is your choice. First exercise we're going to have coming out the gate today is going to be sitting Frankensteins. We're going to dorsiflex at the ankle, pull the toe toward the body. We're going to push those glutes back, sit in a chair on the opposite leg, and touch the toe with 2 hands. We've got 3 steps in between. There's so many different variations of this exercise. You see some people kind of swing their arms through. One thing I'll say about this exercise when my kids are doing it is that I don't let them touch their toe with one hand. Because what they're doing is they're actually rotating their back and trying to, they feel like they're getting a stretch. However, they're just kind of rotating at the back to touch their toes. So I make sure they stay even with 2 hands, touch and go. 3 steps in between, keep it walking nice and smooth. You can have your athletes take a big 3 in between or a small 3, depending on how many times you want them to do the touches. Next exercise we're moving on to is a standing Frankenstein. Some people call this a Frankenstein, walking Frankenstein, or a toy soldier. The way I teach this is I teach it to go opposite hand, opposite toe, every single step, no steps in between. All right. And the idea is that you've got those hands out front and you're using the tips of your fingers as markers, because when you get nice and loose, you'll notice, okay, I'm kicking pretty high, so I'm getting pretty loose while I'm doing this. And we're standing nice and tall, and we're just working it all the way through. Okay, so the next exercise we're going to go into is going to be called an A-form walk. Now, when we run, we go opposite hand, opposite hand, opposite knee, and it's an alternating pattern. So what we're doing now is just slowing down the mechanics, focusing on keeping our elbows in. We're opening our hands. We're going knees up, dorsiflex at the ankle, toe toward our body, and we're just planning and pausing for a split second to really get that core activation and make sure we're ready for movement. This is a very good exercise for athletes who don't really have an understanding of how to get their hands and knees in sync. Some kids go right knee, right hand, left knee, left hand, and it looks like they're just off sync when they're running. To help get them in sync, you can actually put an A-form walk into their warm-up, and they will start to notice their pattern deficiency. Here we're moving on to A skip. We've got opposite hand, opposite knee posture, elbows in. We're working open hands, hip cheek. Now we're just popping that knee up a little bit quicker, dorsiflexing at the ankle, toes toward our body, and we're popping into the ground and popping that knee right back up. And we're not focused on covering ground in this exercise. We're actually focused on reps. So how many A skips can you do in the amount of space that you have? We're standing upright, core's nice and tight, and we're pushing and driving off the ground, knees up, toes out front. A skips, okay? Now remember, 10 to 15 yards of field space is fine. I mean, 10 yards is fine. The next exercise we're going to move into is going to actually be a B skip. So the way I teach this is I have the kids pull their knee as high as they can. I tell them to kick out and pull down. Now my kids are 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, so sometimes I have to make things make sense in their brain. But what we really want to do is pull that knee to at least hip height or higher, and then we want to extend the leg and straighten the leg all the way out, dorsiflex at the ankle, pull the toe toward the body, and then we want to pull down in that position while planting and touching the ground in that dorsiflex position, and continuing to be explosive all the way through. Hip cheek is not as important in B skip, and I could be wrong, but I really like to focus on the pop and the lower extremity through my B skips. So sometimes I'll just throw my hands and kind of just get the momentum going and really focus on the hip. Okay, now we're moving on to a high knee. So we're focused on opposite hand, opposite knee, elbows in, hip cheek, but we're really driving the knee out front and toe out front. Once again, you want to focus on dorsiflexing at the ankle, pulling that toe towards your body. Okay, you're going to hear that all the time. That's where your power is, in the front of that foot. And that's what you want to start to feel as a sprinter and as a person that it's, playing these different sports that are going to call for you to have the best performance on the field. Okay. So that was high knees, and the next exercise we're going to go ahead and move into is going to be butt kicks. So we'll talk through butt kicks really quick. So we've got a hinge at the hip, which brings the chest slightly forward. I can probably lean forward a little bit more, but we're focused on reps. We're focused on speed, and we're focused on reps. Okay, and because I'm demoing the drills, I could probably go a little bit faster in between because you do want to minimize rest. All right, however, I think it's important to also know that your technique is the correct way when you're doing these drills, so that you learn the proper mechanics. So we're going heel to butt, we're driving that heel, and notice I'm not just taking off for a sprint. So many kids, when you say butt kicks, they'll just start running. And a good way to help with butt kicks is to walk with your kids in a line. Keep everybody in a line, and you control the tempo. Okay, now we're moving on to side lunge. Another important exercise, we're leaning left to right. We're going to really stretch those hips and groin muscles out. Toes facing forward, lean to the right, lock the opposite leg, lean to the left, lock the opposite leg. Try to keep the chest up if you can. Try to keep the heels flat if you can. There's a few different variations where coaches will have you kind of lift the ankle up and rotate just a little bit. However, if you're going to do this exercise, just make sure you're being coached by somebody that understands the proper technique and is teaching you the proper way. This is going to be a basic side lunge, and I think if you can master this, you'll be just fine. Okay. Also, lean to the right, sit back in that chair. Lean to the left, sit back in that chair. Okay. Now the next exercise, since we're moving into our lateral series, as you know, I've turned sideways, okay? Next exercise we're going to move into is a karaoke or a karaoke. There's a couple different variations of this, tapioca, all that type of stuff. Tapioca is smaller steps, and it's a little bit quicker. Right now we're focused on picking that knee up and twisting those hips back and forward. And right now we're focused on reps, okay? We're focused on reps. You can cover space, you can cover ground with that exercise too, depending on how much space you have. Tapioca is basically smaller steps, but you're still twisting back and forth at the hip. Moving on to the side shuffle, butt down, side by side. We want to try to keep our feet shoulder width apart, taking small steps, not allowing our shoes to clack together. Okay. Keep the toes facing forward, drop the butt down, keep the chest up, and keep your eyes in the same direction as your chest. Okay, and that's the same thing with karaoke. We want to keep our shoulders square to a neutral location in front of us. Okay, we don't want to twist when we're doing those exercises. We're going to try to keep our shoulders square. All right, finishing up this basic dynamic warm-up, we're going to go to the ground for leg swings. We're going to bend the opposite leg. Here you can see I'm having control. I'm not banging my heel on the ground. So right now I'm giving that hip some activation. I'm giving my core some activation. Sometimes what I like to do is actually lift my head, neck, and shoulders off the ground, almost like an ab exercise, and I'll swing up and down, up and down. Main thing you want to do is try to relax as much as possible, get a good stretch. Now we're going to go into a little bit of rotation here. We're going to rotate to the right, rotate to the left, and get those rotators nice and loose. Get ready for some movement patterns. So you'll do about 10 to the right, 10 to the left, or 5, 6, whatever you think you need. Whatever you think you need in this warm-up, whatever gets you ready to go. Now, it's probably one of the weirdest feeling exercises, but it works, so give it a try. I'm keeping the knee at about 90 degrees. Okay, and I'm flat on the ground. So, I mean, that's pretty much it for the dynamic warm-up, volleyball, basketball, football, multi-sport. Look, give it a try, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Take care.